Hey everybody, Troy Castellano here, coming at you from my Blue Heaven studio near Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, if any of you have been following along, I do some guitar videos and some gear videos, and I buy a lot of cheap guitars, or have had a lot of cheap guitars in my life. So what I wanted to do today is give you the 6 handy things to know when buying a cheap guitar. These are simple little skills to have in your pocket when you buy a cheap guitar, because they probably play like crap right out of the box, but you have the foundation of the instrument. Everything's there to make it work good. So if you have these 6 skill sets in your pocket, you can get these cheap guitars playing great in no time, playing like $1,000 guitar. But I guess the first thing is to have some tools. Tools you're going to want to have on hand, and most of you probably know this, but I'm informing those who don't, is have a simple adjustable wrench or a set of wrenches. This is the only one I keep near my studio here. Just seems like it fits everything that I need. Adjustable wrench. You're going to want a set of hex wrenches, most likely metric, because most of these guitars are made in China and they're all made with metric size. Very handy. Your guitar usually comes with a set. You'll probably get a set like this. You'll get a single big one and a single smaller one. This is for like the saddles on your bridge, and this is for your truss rod. The other handy thing is just to have a nice good side cutter, just to be able to cut your strings off when you're restringing, and be able to cut wire if you're working on the electronics inside. And then one of these handy dandy things, man, you don't know how many times when I first had my very first guitar, or maybe second one, I would just sit there and crank it by hand. I don't even think I knew these existed, but what this is a string winder. You got this little thing that fits on your peg head, and you can spin your strings pretty easy. This one has a little slot for prying out your acoustic bridge pins, and it's got a little wire cutter. Really handy, kind of all in one for changing your strings. The next thing you're going to want to have is a nice set of tools. Unbelievably, I've had this set for about 20 years and never lost a wrench in it. That's what happens when you don't let your kids borrow your tools. But anyway, this has got multiple size Phillips and hex head, and there's some square ones in here. But really handy to have. Probably fits all the parts on your guitars that use those type of screws. Then lastly, kind of might seem like a bigger tool, but it's really not. You can get these things from Walmart or Harbor Freight, 10-15 bucks, and it's just a simple soldering iron. This will get you through fixing any electronics and resoldering parts. I'll tell you a little story about one of the guitars as we get into this. But soldering iron and a little bit of solder. So basically, those are the tools that you're going to need to follow through with these 6 handy things to know when buying a cheap electric guitar. All right, so the first thing on the handy things to know, the skill set you should know, is like how to check and tighten the hardware on here. Usually when I get a new guitar, I'll just go through with the wrench, and I'm going to do this before I even really start playing it. First I'll, basically inspect it, make sure there's no damage, probably tune it up as it is and see how it fares right out of the box. But I will get my adjustable wrench on these nuts here, and I will just tighten each one of them. You just have to get them snug, not too tight. And then I'll make sure these back screws, there's little ones that hold the tuning peg to the headstock. I will just snug them up, and don't tighten them too much, because you can strip the wood and then you probably have to fill it with glue and re-screw it. So I'll go through that. I will check the input, and I'll tighten that nut. Knobs, sometimes they're just loose. They weren't tightened on there very well, so they're mounted in the body, but they're loose. I'll pull the knob off. That one came off pretty easy, but you can get like a little plastic pry bar under there, or something that won't damage your guitar, and just pry those up. Do it easy, because they will break. But there's a little nut on the pot there that I want to tighten up. I'll make sure those are tight. I'll make sure the toggle switch is tight, because those loosen during shipping as well. The second thing and this is real simple and rudimentary, but learn how to change your strings, because you're going to want to put a new set of strings on that guitar. The strings that come with the guitars are fairly cheap and they don't feel good. Your fingers are rough sliding on them. It's just a simple thing to do to get your guitar playing better. Get some decent Ernie balls or D'Addario or some good set of strings, and restring the guitar to your gauge. And that's where this tool came in very handy, and the side cutter. All right, so the third thing you should know is know how to adjust your truss rod. And the truss rod is a bar that goes through your neck, and it's kind of pre-hardened in a bit of a bowed shape like that, and that allows you, if you turn the bar inside there, basically if you're looking at it and you're turning it left or right, you're making that bow either get flatter or more bowed out. And so what adjusting your truss rod does is, looking at your fretboard, it will make the neck super flat, or you can give it a little bit of relief so it's not so flat, where, you know, it'd be convex. Or if you over tighten it, it'll be concave and you'll get a lot of buzzing because it will bow up in the middle, kind of like that, you know. There's a lot of videos on YouTube on how to do that, so I won't go into detail, but basically that's what a truss rod does. You will find on most guitars, like a Les Paul, like an SG, like a hollow body like this, you're going to find the truss rod adjustment nut under the cover, or it will be exposed, like on a Strat guitar or many other guitars. These are exposed like this one here. And so just adjusting your truss rod, this is where the hex wrenches come in handy, and you'll probably get one or two with your guitar. And one is for your truss rod. And you basically just put the wrench in there, and say this is like bowed down too much, the neck's bowed too much. I'll put the wrench in there and I'll give it about a quarter turn, and then I'll look at the neck, and I usually will look right down the edge of the fretboard where I can just kind of see the silver of all the frets. It almost makes one line because I'm looking at it at an angle, and I can see the bow to the neck. Is it concave? Is it convex? Is it flat? And then I'll just, you know, tinker with it. Maybe it needs a little more. And then I'll play it, tune it, play it, see how it is. If you get a lot of buzzing, you probably went too far. So just back that off. I usually go a quarter inch at a time either way. I mean, quarter turn at a time either way. Just, you know, it's finessing and making sure you finally get it to where you want to be. Some truss rods are right here, the nut for it. Some Strats are like that. It'll be exposed on some. Some of it is under the pick guard, which is a real pain in the butt because you got to pull that off to get the wrench in there, which means you got to remove your strings and all of that. And then there's also another one, which is a little wheel, which I think Van Halen or PV or somebody came up with that wheel style. I could be wrong, but what that is it's a little wheel with holes in it, and the hole is so you can stick your wrench into the hole, and then you basically can turn it. You can just turn the wheel. So those are really handy. I really like those the most. But those will be the ways you can adjust your truss rod. And if you know how to do that, it's really helpful to get the action the way you like your guitar. Check out a video on how to do that truss rod adjustment, and you'll be happy you got that skill set. The next thing is like knowing how to adjust your bridge height. So this is tip number 4, to adjust your bridge height. Some of these out of the box come so high, and it's just like, no wonder it's hard for kids to learn on guitars because the action's so tough. So they'll be so high, and what I want to do with a high saddle is lower it down. On a Strat style, you have a hex screw on each side of the string, 2 for each saddle. And you just put your wrench in there and lower it or heighten it to your taste. This one is interesting because, I don't know if you can see it, but this has got a this has got a convex radius to the board, so it kind of curves like that. So the saddles on the outside are lower than the ones on the inside. And I'm hoping you guys can see that here. But here, maybe you can see the way the saddles are kind of arched like that. But that's what it takes to get on, it's set up right on a Strat style like this. Now the bridge height on a Telly style is basically the same as a Strat, but they don't have that long flat saddle piece. They'll generally have this kind of barrel style. It's just a round cylinder that the strings rest on, and it's the same theory there. You've got 2 hex screws on each side of the saddle. Just adjust them to the height you want for each string, get your action feeling good. This one isn't so convex. It is a little bit, but that's how you do it on a Telly style. Now, on a hollow body, a Les Paul or SG, you're probably going to have this Tune-O-Matic style bridge, and on the cheap ones, which we're talking about, cheap guitars, we'll usually have a slotted screw going right through the bridge. That's basically the bridge pin. And you're going to want to screw that in to lower it or out to get it higher. And there's also little thumb wheels, but those are pretty hard to move, so I would use the screwdriver. And you basically, this one here, you just take, you don't have to do each saddle, which is really cool. You just adjust both sides to get it to where you want for the high string and the low string. So pretty easy, another good skill set to have in your pocket. All right, so the 5th handy thing is knowing how to adjust your intonation. Most of the time, these guitars will come out, they're not intonated very well. I guess they just kind of guess it. They probably throw a little template over it and adjust it. But on these Tune-O-Matic style, well, let me explain this. Intonation is making sure that from the bridge to the 12th fret is the same length as from the 12th fret to the nut. And we're talking millimeters, so it doesn't take very many adjustments. And the reason why you'll see like the thicker strings of saddles tend to be back farther is because the thinner string, it's so small, it's actually, you're losing a little bit of the girth to it, so you have to have those forward a little bit. It's probably not a great explanation, but the way you do it, so if this was sharp, let me go back here, let me tell you. So to check your intonation, I got a clip-on tuner here. I'll hit the string open, get it into pitch, close as I can. Tuners on this guitar are really touchy. So I'll get as close as I can, and then hit it open, we're in pitch. I'll hit the 12th string, hit E, we're a little flat, so this could use an adjustment. Since it's flat, I would want to pull the saddle or towards the pickups. So flat, go towards the pickup. If you're sharp, pull the saddle back. And basically just do that till you get it in pitch, right there. Lots of videos on this online, so I won't go into detail. But learning how to intonate your guitar is super important, because that's going to make it play even better. So that's how you do it on the Tune-O-Matic style. On a Strat and a Telly, it's the same thing. They have a screw with a spring, and you can pull that saddle forward or backward until you get it into pitch. But man, that's been a real saver for me in getting guitars playing pretty decent. So the 6th handiest thing to know is knowing how to solder. Now it's not very complicated, but don't touch that because it gets pretty hot. I burnt myself many times not looking what I'm doing. But a soldering iron is basically a soft way to weld your wiring to its component. You just basically melt this. Lots of videos online too about that, so just search how to intro to soldering or something. But I'm going to tell you why that one's really important too. Just for instance, I have a nonprofit called Instruments for Education, and we buy and donate guitars to Middle Tennessee area schools. And so I've usually got to make sure that they're working and fixed once I've bought it and I've received it, opened the box. This example, so I got this one, it's brand new in the box, opened it up. First thing I do is I'll tune up the guitar and just make sure that it plays and everything's working right. But this one I could not even get the cord in the hole. I mean, it would go about that far, and I'm just like fighting it, and I'm like, what in the heck is going on? I can't even plug it in. So fortunately, this one is pretty easy. It just takes 3 screws. This component flips open and there'll be wires connected, so you can't pull it too far apart. And just as a safety precaution, whenever I'm working on instruments, I'll usually take a picture of the wiring in there with my phone so I have a reference to go back to in case I broke some more wires off or something. But in the case of this bass, straight out of the box, it had a bad 1/4 inch jack. And what happened here, I doubt you can see it, but there's a little lip on there like a rivet as they press those together, and it was bent. I mean, I'm hoping you could see it there. But there's no way this would get past. Oh, now it made me a liar, probably because I pushed it in there so many times. But I couldn't get it past there. It just would not fit in the hole. So what I had to do is open that cavity, and there's 2 wires that go to it. I take my soldering iron and I heat the wire up. It will melt the solder and then the wire's loose. And then I will get a new one of these. And you used to be able to get these from Radio Shack for like 99 cents a piece. Now you can buy them on Amazon, probably the same price. But usually have a few of these on hand if you're into cheap guitars. And then yeah, I soldered it up, got it working great. And same thing with this bass. This had hex screws on the saddle. I adjusted that, adjusted the intonation, and now it plays like a $1,000 guitar. Does it sound like one? Maybe not. Probably could use some different electronics, but man, it's really great starter guitar now, or bass for somebody. So that's why it's important to be able to have these skills, and they're simple ones to have under your belt when buying a cheap guitar, because you could take a $100 guitar, a $200 guitar, and you can make it play like a $3,000 guitar. I mean, who wouldn't want that? So if you don't know how to do these things, or some of them, I highly recommend learning how to have these skills under your belt, because then, you know, you're off and running, and no matter, even if it's an older, expensive guitar and it's not playing very well, you'll know how to set it up. So I hope you guys enjoy watching these videos. I love making them. It's a part of my interest as well. And if you're into these things, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You'll get the messages when I put a new video out. And I guess it raises street cred with YouTube as well. So would really appreciate you following along and subscribing. And thanks for watching, guys. All right, take care. Peace.